Thank you, Gilbert. I just want to track on one item on the last, because we ended quickly.
Okay.
For those people, for those residents that just heard the last part of the conversation about there will be another meeting, they're probably just excited for one, but raging because there was a neighborhood meeting at the end of February, and there were, at that point, there was very loud voices, and the councilman at that point said, we will regroup in 2 weeks. That 2 weeks has ended, and they are calling daily. So this is the first time, if they're listening, that they're hearing that there's going to be another meeting. So it's about the commitment, please, or the follow through for them. On your question, Gilbert, regarding the 1 8 cents about educate how we're going and moving into education. People have been calling, and when we're block walking, you get, that's the best thing. You get the one-on-one. These are some of the comments we're to represent. So I'm giving you comments. One, I'm a property owner. My property tax, I already pay double my property tax to education that I do to my own city. And there was one gentleman that made a wonderful observation. He says, never has a school district come up and said, how can I help you, the city, when it comes to policing? How can I help you, the city, when it comes to street maintenance? How can I help you with animal control when we get on your property tax double? So the trend about the education, and for some that are real, and we have a lot of retirees in District 7, it's okay. And there was a wonderful comment in today's paper, in fact, and so I'll just quote that. You don't put more money into a machine that says it's out of order. The question for them, and I think it's a live question here, tell me the details. You've got to have some really good details if you're going to sell this. And that will be, I think, the challenge and the openness of those details, because if we're going to put more money into education, you're going to have, it's going to have to be a really good sell for some people.
Cris Medina, that's a fair question. If we are going to do this, and if you support it, where should that money go? Exactly what should the city's role be in education?
Great question, great point. Thank you, Gilbert. I think that I do, support the mayor's initiative and idea of using education as a catalyst for economic development. There's so many things that we can do. Brick and mortar type initiatives. Getting jobs for our community and our district. But I think that there's still some questions that need to be asked, and that's one of them. How are we going to divvy it up? How are we going to go back to voters potentially and ask them to put money into a system that right now has gotten so much scrutiny, and we need to address those other symptoms of how we can make our education system better. I don't know if essentially throwing money at the problem is going to work, but those are again tough questions that I think are going to be coming to the forefront here real soon.
But you support the concept of doing
I would support it. As a young adult that took advantage of the GI Bill and went to college at night, education was that separating point for me to move up ahead. So I support it, but again, I think some tough questions that lie ahead of us.
Right. Ruben Cortez, what is your view on that?
Well, I support it. I have a long line of family people who are involved in teaching, and my wife works in the district. She's also involved. I've got a daughter that's a teacher. The importance of education is paramount. I worked at USA for 25 years, and I will tell you the top 10 or the top companies in the country, that's their first obligation and goal, is to get their staff educated. That's where I ended up getting my degree at University of Incarnate Word. The importance of keeping our kids and our young people, even the older people, educated to be able to function in these jobs is paramount. We see the inner city problems when people are not going to school, the difficulties those things bring. Now that we have this ability to add a tax, nobody likes taxes, but this is something that I think almost everybody I've talked to supports, is willing to do, for the betterment of not only the community but the city and how people envision San Antonio.
Okay. Dr. Gloria Rodriquez, you have a long background in education. Isn't this really the role of a school district? What role should the city have in this type of thing?
Well, I'm so glad this question came up because I am an educator. I was called an activist, but basically I am the founder, president, and CEO of Avance, and was its CEO for 32 years. That is an education program. I was a former school teacher, have my principal certificate, and have my doctorate degree in education. And basically my life has been really into education and helping the children reach their potential, trying to build the skills for a strong economy. And so I support the #1 goal of SA 2020, which is education. But before I say, let's put all the money and all the taxes in this, as a businesswoman running a $32 million organization, I believe we need to look at a plan, look at all the options. At Avance, we were a nonprofit organization, but we work with so many partners, the business sector, the nonprofits, the federal government, the foundations. We even brought volunteers in. I want to work with the mayor and the city council and all the community in coming up with the best plan. How can we change our libraries and make them an education institution? How can we bring the senior citizens and make them tutors? How can we just bring the business sector and help with technology? And so my point is, in working on this plan, as I did at Avance, it comes up with a certain amount of money. Then we'll determine how much money we'll need. I will be tremendously supportive of any effort to strengthen the educational goals and the outcomes for our children and as well as our adults. They need literacy, and we need to really bring about a very strong workforce.
Thank you very much.
All right, Gilbert, thanks for that question. It's 11:33 on KTSA. Our next round of questioning will start with Elena Guajardo. And Elena, a caller, Carlos, wants to know and wants each of you to identify an ordinance, if there is one, a current city ordinance that you would be in favor of repealing, or an example of the city government overstepping its bounds in legislating the lives of its people. So we'll start with you, Elena Guajardo, on that.
Thank you. There's one ordinance that came up last year, it got voted on, and it is the change to the UDC amendment. The UDC is the Unified Development Code, and it is the blueprint of how we do planning in our city. And there's a lot of intricate items in there. The history of that is the city staff brought to the council, it used to be every year, then it got changed to every 2 years, and now last year it got changed to every 5 years. The staff cannot come before council with any UDC amendments in a 5-year span. And that has tremendous effect when you're talking about how you're planning your streets, how you're planning sometimes the tree mitigations, where the schools would be located in new developments, etc. And for so many staffers, I have heard now we're tied. We cannot voice when we see this progressive.
So that's the one you would favor repealing. All right, Cris Medina, same question for you.
Thank you, Jack. One particular ordinance that I'd like to examine and take a look at to see how we can do it more effectively and better is the notifications with regard to zoning cases. Right now, folks that live within 200 feet of a zoning case are notified. I'd like to expand it. I think that that's not enough of a buffer in terms of getting notification out because, for example, you may have a property at the corner of a busy intersection but have residential homes behind there, and that corner could potentially become a store or something that folks deeper in the neighborhood need to know about. So I'd like to expand that notification buffer zone to have more notification for folks that are impacted by zoning cases.
Ruben Cortez, same question for you. An ordinance or an action of city government you would repeal?
Well, probably one of the biggest ordinances in my world is, as a broker realtor, is the builders and their rules and regulations regarding the tree lines and the vegetation and how they're putting out, they're stripping the lands and things like that. I think that the idea was good with that as far as limiting the amount of trees they could take out of areas and the different areas. They had to come together and they had to get a consensus. I don't think it's worked quite as well as it should have. We still find many new builders and new developments coming out all over the city that come in and really redefine the area by taking out trees and terrain and different things like that. So I would look at that again, becoming more green in our environment, more conscious about what's going on with the houses and the neighborhoods and the floodings and all the things that come along doing that.
All right, Dr. Gloria Rodriquez.
I agree with Ruben, and it's related to the tree cover. As we go into development, we do have impact fees to make sure that taking down those trees will have an impact on our environment. It'll have an impact on floods from north going down to my district, and yet they have been ignored. There has been no enforcement. And so whether it's trees for a better environment, or whether it's not having too much of the impervious cover that will not allow the water to drain, has an impact on neighborhoods, and people need to be protected. And so this is what I would really look at.
All right, Doctor, thank you. And Fred Rangel, your answer to the same question. Again, the caller wanting to know an ordinance or an action of city government that you would like to see repealed.
Over the last 25 years, I've worked in my own business as a design build firm, and we deal constantly with development services, and obviously the many of the problems or issues that have come there from many things. There have been canopy issues. There have been issues concerning buffer zones. There have been issues concerning a tree canopy. There's so many issues that have come about that have caused problems, and I'll give you a specific example. In one case, there was an ordinance to allow a commercial building to be within 35 feet from the front property line, and that caused a problem in several clients actually that had problems where they had all their buildings on the backside of their property. It didn't work. It was difficult to make a changeover in that particular issue because of the UDC, and there was no appeals process. So I would favor instituting. In fact, I was instrumental in one of the individuals that was asked by City Manager Scully concerning the introduction of an appeals board to be able to solve that. And also favor and became the Building and Fire Appeals Board. And I do favor the Board of Appeals, particularly that will allow people also that have issues with code compliance, because sometimes those inspectors get a little bit out of hand, and we just need to give the freedom to the voter more so than to government. So I favor looking at any ordinance within a period of 6 to 12 months, 18 months evaluation, or even 24 months, every ordinance to be evaluated for effectiveness.
All right, we're back with our District 7 City Council candidates on News Talk 550 KTSA, but first at 11:40, into the newsroom.